I'm going to tell you a story, contextualized in a fantasy medieval setting, and drawing from history, two of Shadiversity's excellent videos, and my own thoughts. I'm going to tell you how and why medieval adventurers as we know them came to be. You're going to want to stick around to the end because it all ties together very well. This is not a story about military campaigns or religious missions. This is one possible origin story for a traditional Dungeons & Dragons style adventurer. Instead of looking at our own history and then judging the adventurer to it to decide if the concept is plausible, let us proceed with the context that fantasy adventurers do exist. We will take this for granted, and so the question becomes not whether adventurers existed, but how. Two common driving forces for adventure are the threat of monsters and the promise of treasure. Ultimately, though, you adventure because you're supposed to in order to advance the story, and if you don't, then there is no game. The goal, no matter the frills of character arcs and backstories, is to adventure for adventuring's sake, to get to level 20. But real life doesn't work that way. Characters have backstories. People have motivations. Shad mentions, and I agree, that if you break down the purpose of an adventure, there will actually be two different groups of people, the local adventurer and the traveling mercenary. But I actually think that there's a third group, or rather in my version of the story, a first group. Settlers. The city you live in is doing well, but it's becoming overcrowded. The supply of labor increases as a result, and even though you have a job, your wage decreases because the supply so outstrips the demand. You can't afford your cost of living. Your options are relocation to another city or indentured servitude. But there is another way out. New territory has just been acquired by the kingdom. Unpopulated, unexplored land that needs to be settled. It sounds dangerous, but the king will pay anyone willing to settle out there a small stipend and give you a plot of land for free. All you have to do is get out there and claim it, and then keep it. You sign for a charter and a land grant, joining a caravan of like-minded individuals, perhaps bringing your family with you, or if you feel it's too dangerous, going on ahead to forge a safe path for them. Either way, your group needs a guide, and so you hire one or two expert trackers, rangers they call them, to lead you to the new land. Travel is difficult. The land is dominated by harsh terrain and hostile creatures, and the two guides you hired aren't enough to protect you. After one deadly encounter, those of you wise enough realize that you must take your defense into your own hands. You begin picking up new survival skills and combat skills. On your travels, you become an invaluable member to the caravan, who begin to look to you to complete certain tasks. Upon arrival to the settlement, the guides leave you, their job completed, but the new village continues to be in dangerous territory. Your fellows decide that your newfound skills as a tracker, a fighter, a hunter, or a healer are just as useful, if not more so, than whatever your previous profession was. You still may tinker or cobble in your free time, but for the most part, your new friends depend on you to keep them safe, fed, or healthy. Your group of local heroes forms, tending to hostile entities and helping your community. Over the next few years, you gain influence and perhaps a small fortune of coin. Some of you start to gather a little bit of a following, your leadership more greatly respected than whoever was perceived to be in charge before. Perhaps you were so loved that your leadership was immediate and uncontested. Any lord or governing body is too far removed to have any sway over the community. So for now, you have power and respect. But power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Without fear of repercussion, a few members of your party begin abusing their position. Perhaps the majority is perfectly content to live under your new rule. You do still protect them after all, and any faction opposed to you is too fractured to do anything about it. There are those that dislike your party, but still think that you are a necessary evil. And there are also those that think that they would do perfectly fine without your party, but for whatever reason lack the power or influence or support to overthrow you. Perhaps they just want to take your role for themselves. It doesn't matter. Eventually, the dam breaks, and you find yourself on one side or another of an uprising. And if history is any indicator, this will be repeated throughout the entire province. No matter your efforts or which side you chose, eventually the tyranny of your party is overthrown. But the land remains hostile, and the goblins and the beasts now sense weakness, their greatest enemies now deposed and powerless. The populace still needs you, but they're also afraid. How to prevent this from happening again? What if the monarch cracks down on adventurers? Seeing them as a threat to his own power, he brands them outlaws. Well, now all villages need an occupying military force in order to handle their problems. What if the people start asking the government to take control of adventurers and start providing adventuring as a free service? Who would do this for free? Neither of these outcomes is desirable, and so a Magna Carta is written to decentralize any power that any single adventuring group might hold. If you stay in an area for too long, the populace will start becoming wary of your intentions, and you will be forced to move on. By law. The local heroes become traveling adventurers, but this presents a new problem. Adventurers now no longer have allegiance to the people that they're working for, because they don't know them. So coin, rather than altruism, becomes the only incentive, giving rise to a new form of adventurer, the mercenary. Conflict between parties is imminent, with your group and theirs battling for the rights to territory and clients, your gold stolen out from under you on the road after you've done all the hard work. And when payment becomes the only motivator, small villages, which may at one point have had their own adventuring parties, are now forced to compete with towns that are capable of paying much more, potentially wiping them out completely. So the solution to this chaos? An adventurer's guild, to protect adventurers from underpayment, provide for their families should they perish on a journey, and assign regions to a rotation of parties to ensure that all towns and regions have their needs met. They regulate the prices for certain jobs, eliminating competition between adventuring groups and making sure that none is preferred over another. And they begin requiring memberships. Adventurers must be part of the guild, or they're labeled competition. And threats. But competition ensures better service. What happens if the Adventurers Guild becomes so powerful that it's the only thing capable of keeping itself in check? If there's no competition, then we're right back where we started. The only true way to prevent a power imbalance is to train and mentor good adventurers. There may always be evil, but there will also be good. So there is a resurgence of local adventurers, and new guilds begin to form to protect and support the new generation. This is the state of the world you find yourself in. We have local heroes, mercenaries, traveling adventurers, and adventuring guilds, all the facets of a medieval world that we are so very used to, now logically and historically explained, and any point in this journey would be an excellent point to start a story, so there really is only one question left. Are you joining the guild?